Hi there, welcome back to Save with Crypto. My name is Save with Crypto, and today I've got a special guest, and it is the amazing Maff, who is the coder that has been helping me with the quad rotation stochastic indicator. If you don't know what that is, then it might mean that you're not subscribed to the channel, so please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you've got the notifications set on all. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to say hello to Maff and ask him how he is. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Very, very hot at the moment. We were chatting just before this, and I was just saying that I'm in this tiny sort of office room in my house. It's at the top floor of a narrow townhouse in the suburbs of London, and it's absolutely baking. I've got the window wide open and fans going, but it's not really working. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, apart from that, good.
Okay, so the burning question is Maff, how did you kind of get involved with this indicator? Because all of a sudden you appeared out of nowhere with a revision of the script that I just thought was amazing.
Yeah, so I guess how I initially found the indicator, I suppose. So I joined the CSE Discord, like crypto saving expert, signed up through there after watching like that Martini guy's videos and so on. So it's kind of that route, and then from there really just kind of found my way through to yourself and the Telegram group and so on. Loaded up the indicator from that, and yeah, I mean in terms of what really drew me to it was it seems uncannily accurate. I'd say that was one of the things that really made me sort of think, oh, hang on, this seems different from other indicators that I've been kind of using generally. I mean, it isn't perfect, but then that would be quite scary if it called every price move and it was always correct. But obviously you use it with other indicators, which is kind of how it's meant to be used, really. I did find it's just simple enough. It's always been simple enough for a kind of go, no go sort of thing, sort of decision, like do I take the trade or not, and which direction, and so it's signals in that sense. Perhaps most importantly, it's just like I can understand it. It's not just the signals, but it's also why it's producing them. I mean, obviously there's a source code, but there's also just the explanations, like the theory behind the quad rotation, the stochastics themselves, and just the mechanics. You can kind of see why it's producing the signals that it's producing. I just found with a lot of other indicators, I mean, I'm talking about the free ones really, but with those you find that I find they're immensely clever. They're doing very clever things, but often I just don't really understand them, either what they're telling me or kind of why. It's like the dark arts to me. So yeah, that was what I really found with this.
Yeah, that's really cool. I must admit, I was drawn to it in a similar way, really, because when I was first shown the original version, I just thought, oh yeah, I can kind of understand why it's doing that, and I can interpret the results fairly easily. And I did like it, rather than being something saying like buy and sell. I could understand a little bit of the mathematics and stuff behind it. So the indicator is based on a stochastic oscillator. So that's this thing we've got at the bottom here, and that is basically made out of 4 different stochastics, which are working on different time frames. And what Maff has done is changed it from what you can see here on this screenshot that I've got from like a week ago compared to what we've got now, which is on the screen now. And as you can see, it looks a lot neater. It's generally much easier on the eye, and some other things have popped up because of this. So Maff, do you want to tell us what exactly you did to make it look so beautiful?
Sure. Yeah, so essentially, so from the previous version, of course, you've got the the four stochastic lines, each which kind of represents a different time frame. So, I mean, as you've explained, obviously in plenty of videos before this, but like just for example, the red being the fastest of the four, the green I think being the the green being the slowest, and so essentially with this, so then what I've done is in the view just kind of kept the red, so you can still see the red, which is the most reactive. There's a price change, and then this reacts pretty quickly. This is on the lowest time frame, the fastest one. The white line is then it's a simple average, but it's also weighted of actually all four, including the red. The red is the least weighted. It's most sort of downplayed of the four, and then so yeah, it's literally just an average of the four stochastics, but it's the weighting of it just gives the most emphasis to the slower time frames, particularly the green. So then the two together is then just a case of are the two basically in agreement or not. So I was stumbling then because I was thinking like, do you call them the two extremes? They kind of, but because it's a weighted average, that it's a sort of extreme, but it's being brought in closer to the red, if you see what I mean. So it actually makes them more likely to converge in that sense. If people wanted to, they can play around with those weightings and those weights even in the settings just to see what changes. So essentially what that means in terms of reading this is that so we're calling this a convergence band. So yeah, when it's narrower, so in other words, when on a particular bar, when the top and bottom of the band are closer together or virtually touching, like there, then that means that these are in agreement. The two sort of sides, the two extremes are in agreement, and the one I'm just randomly pointing out there happens to be in the middle of the range. So that's probably not. So obviously because that's mid-range, it's not the best example. That's kind of when you would just say, oh, that's nice. But when it's good to really take notice of these as a potential signal, depending how you read it, is when they go above into overbought, which is the sort of 80% and above here, or oversold, which is below the 20. And if they've both gone into one of these regions, and they're vertically very close together, then that means then it's very relevant. It's kind of important, if you like, that they're in agreement. So there are a couple of caveats on that which I could go through as well. But also then in terms of the strength of what it's trying to tell you is if they both start to come around, then that means that they're pivoting, and it means that the price trend is probably about to pivot as well. The price itself is going to, so in fact that's kind of what you see happening there. Maybe that one catches it. Yeah, I suppose it catches it, because obviously something has to happen to the price for this to react, and so like you see a change in the price. This is kind of confirming that the momentum is stalling at that point. It's going to come back down, and that's kind of then what happens. So in terms of the to further strengthen that reading of what we're looking at, then we'd also look at if there's an air gap between the, what are we calling it? I suppose the overbought line, the extreme line, I guess, the extreme zone, and where the band actually is at that point. And so if there's that, then that's actually, so that particular one, it hasn't curved around yet. let me just widen that a bit, so just to exaggerate it a bit. So that particular one hasn't curved around yet, though there's an air gap. So it really needs both to come around, which they have there. I would say that counts as a pretty good signal. There are stronger ones. There's probably one here, which and this is coupled with the green background, which already existed in the indicator, so not something I added. But when these are in agreement, then again, that's pretty strong that the price is going to go long.
Yeah, we should really mention the green and red background. They look more like vertical lines here because it doesn't normally happen for very long. But where you see these green and red backgrounds on the indicator, that is basically, it's when a configurable number, and I think that's set to 4, isn't it, by default?
Yeah, it might be 3 actually.
I think it might be 3 actually. So I think by default it's something like when 3 of the stochastics are agree in direction and position. Okay, whether that be bullish or bearish. So when you see the green and red signals, that is a strong signal that they are in agreement. There's also another one as well. So for anyone who hasn't actually seen the indicator before, there are a few other things that do help and can be a little bit confusing as well. The super up indicator, I'm just trying to find my notes on that. Do you happen to know when that appears? What's the condition for it?
My note on here is if they appear, then it's even better.
Yeah, well, let's leave it like that, shall we? But yeah. So that is, I think that's when like all the stochastics agree and they're all pointing up. So for example, where we got the little green arrow down the bottom, that means it means they're all down there. The asset's really oversold, but things are starting to look better. So that is normally a very, very good sign of a bottom. So you're looking at this on the 12-minute time frame.
I mean, I generally find 12-minute to be pretty accurate, but then I suppose it kind of depends what you're looking out for that.
Yeah, it also depends what asset you're looking at as well. I mean, we're looking at Bitcoin here, but I have noticed that I did a video this morning that I was talking about GME, GameStop, and that obviously moves, well, a little bit slower. It's still quite a crazy stock actually, but even so, that worked really well on that. So I wanted to show you an example of, well, 2 things really. One is the green up arrow that you can see on about the 13th of June. So you can see there the green background appeared there with that little green arrow as well down the bottom, signifying that was probably almost definitely a bottom. And wasn't it? That was a beautiful one, wasn't it? And if you'd have gone long from there and ridden that to the peak, and well, actually ridden it until you saw a red background, which would have put you in a good place, right over there on the 16th or the 17th of June, then you would have made loads of money.
To be honest, even this one, looking at it, that did correctly signal along just there. I mean, I think it would have been a brave person who actually took that one, but it was there and it worked out.
Yeah, no, it was. It's really good. And that one there, back on that one you just pointed out, is probably a good example of like it not being perfect, because when that did turn around, even though the convergence band had got almost to that 80%, it hadn't quite got there and the price did come down. But nevertheless, the next green background there on the 13th was amazing. So that's great. And I've been using this on as I say, like GME and Tesla and stuff like that, and it's just working, an absolute dream. It's absolutely beautiful. So how are you using this for trading at the moment, and what are you looking for when you're using it?
Yeah, I mean, so I've certainly been using it for trading. Not a huge amount, to be honest, but mainly that's just down to time at the moment. Yeah, in terms of, I mean, sort of placed a few trades with it, I'd say at the moment. Just desperate to sort of get to just put more time into the trading side of it. So have done in the past, and sometimes it's been great, sometimes it's been pretty disastrous. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of how I have used this and how I would very much see myself sort of using it kind of more so. I mean, one thing I would say is that in terms of just waiting for the confluence of, like, I suppose, like all the stars to be in alignment, because there's so many different confirmations, not just in this indicator, but in other aspects as well, then you just never place a trade. It's like a trading paralysis kind of thing, analysis paralysis. It's like, no, but this contraindicates, you know. But you kind of look for a confluence of signal, so, you know, and just kind of make a decision like, yeah, enough things are pointing in the right direction and so on. I mean, in terms of the indications, the things that would point towards that, but obviously the red-green background is a huge thing, and of course the super up and super down, just all the stuff we talked about as well, the convergence band, and that particular signal. Also, of course, because this is all momentum based, being a momentum oscillator, it's just also using this in line with the CT Mac. I know this is very much what you do as well, to get the trend, because in fact it's pretty vital to do that, really, because often if this is saying, I think this, you know, everything is agreement that this is overbought or this is oversold, but the trend is just strongly in the other direction, and you can kind of see that.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but if you look back there on the 12th or whenever it was, that, you know, the one where you're talking about the thin green background, and you were saying you'd have to be a brave man to do that. Well, yeah, for sure, because the moving averages there are in that order, you know, green, yellow, cyan, red, indicating there's a downtrend and it's a trend in motion. So, you know, everything is really pointing downwards. So you'd be very brave to go long there. But on that next one, slightly later, the big thicker one, that one there, at that point there, right, you've actually got the red 5 EMA. That is starting to turn positive again, isn't it? So if you're looking at the EMAs as well, you're actually thinking, well, actually, you know, because that 5 EMA is starting to turn up, and, you know, it's probably going to go up there, the cyan is probably going to follow as well. And indeed, that's exactly what did happen. It took a while, but that one there, the big thicker one, that would have been a more probable entry for me, because you're starting to see some clues from the EMAs that the trend was going to change soon. And in fact, the trend didn't actually change that quickly, did it?
Because, like, so rather than it just a hairpin bend and it's off, that often suggests a bounce, I think. Yeah, whereas something more like this, I suppose, when it just it at least ranges for a little while, and then off in the next direction, is more convincing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I find really interesting is you're looking at this indicator as a way to get you to trade, and otherwise you're just not going to enter a trade. I'm actually seeing it from the opposite point of view, where that I know one thing I do is I overtrade. You know, I mean, it's very rare that I'm not in a trade. I mean, I'm not particularly in a trade at the moment, but that's quite rare for me. I overtrade all the time, and consequently I get trapped and I get myself in a mess. Having this indicator helps me to actually think, well, you know, I want to go short now, like maybe I do at the moment, but I'm not going to, because I'm not seeing the right signal at the moment. So I think it's really cool that it stops me overtrade, and it stops you undertrading, if there's such a thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, missing opportunities, I suppose, but it takes the anxiety out of that, I would say.
Okay, so I noticed that when you did a few updates to the indicator and stuff, a few things did change. Now, some of those things were on purpose. For anybody who used the original version, you will know that there were these kind of automatic bullish and bearish divergence lines that it put in. Now, if you look at any videos by the guy who came up with the quad rotation idea is a guy called John Curisco. He's got a channel called Day Trading Radio. If you look at his videos, he will talk about the divergence being quite important. So I think that's why it was there in the original version of the indicator. However, what me and Maff discovered was the fact that it only put those lines in when it was too late. So for anybody who's looking at the old indicator thinking like, oh, that was better, it isn't. I mean, we were going to give you the decision and put it over to the viewers or the Telegram group and say like, what do you think? But we decided that there's no point because it's useless. It was something that told you what happened, which isn't any use when you're trading.
One thing to mention about that, because it is also noticeable that, like, if you went into the settings of that version, it allowed you to set the number of bars that it would look ahead. So I think it was set to maybe 4 or 5 bars into the future. So it would wait until those had played out before it made the actual decision on whether to draw the divergence line or not. So it wouldn't even be just like the next bar. It'd be like several bars too late. I mean, you could try setting that to like 1 bar ahead or even 0, and the accuracy just went, it just wasn't useful at that point. So yeah.
Yeah, so between me and Maff, we decided to just take it out, and that's what Maff did in this version here. In addition, you tidied up the menu a lot for the settings, didn't you? Do you want to show us that?
Yeah, sure. Let's go into this. I would say this is actually still a bit of a work in progress. As people in the Telegram group noted that some of the color settings disappeared, so I'm kind of working on that. They're supposed to be inferred by TradingView essentially, because they run the scripts on their servers, and they're supposed to infer when colors appear for these sorts of settings. So yeah, just tracking down what's happening there. But yeah, in terms of what's tidied up here, so these are all now kind of grouped so that stochastics being kind of the main one, and the stochastic average color is out of there. Oh yeah, also just tidied up the tooltips in these a bit, so you can get some hopefully fairly clear explanations of each of these, like that. Just tells you a bit about that. So like the lower that number, the more false alerts you'll get. So obviously that goes up to 4 because it's for the 4 stochastics. In terms of the averages, the averaged out number, nice color. As it says, heavily weighted towards stochastic 4. Then for the converging, so I'll probably call that convergence band, I think, now that we settled on that name. I've started to do that, go through the script, just kind of updating those. So yeah, so I've got an explanation there now for the convergence band. I'll change ribbon. It's a gradient filled band in the middle of the indicator, and the stuff I was explaining earlier, it's based on the 2 values. Strong buy or sell signal is when the convergence band is entirely an oversold or overbought. It starts to curve inward, and you can also use this as a signal to close a position. So like even if it's kind of mid-range and it starts to curve, then that's probably signaling that the momentum is petering out. It's puttering to close, and it's going to reverse maybe. So at least maybe think about taking some profit at that point, even if the position's kept open with a stop loss or whatever. Then ABCD, I mean that was already there, but it was for I just reorganized it a bit. But essentially that's for the X's.
We do need to talk about those.
So I think what they what they do sort of show, which is good, obviously, is that because it's kind of a pattern recognition that, so like when stochastic 4, the higher time frame is like stuck in extreme territory, like above 90 or below 10, then it's a potential trend continuation. So in other words, if if the stochastic band is kind of stuck up here, above the 80, it's stuck, then it's above 90 really. Then it's suggesting that even if the price might look as if it's going to turn, it's quite likely that it's just going to carry on going in the same direction.
Brilliant. Okay, that's a good explanation. I keep thinking of a way to explain that, and and I always confuse people. So yeah, I mean, we're not actually seeing the crosses here on the 1 hour because they very rarely appear here. But we can talk about that later. But if you want to continue with your explanation of this menu, then we'll do that later.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So what we've got below here, I just stuffed down a lot of the sort of, you probably don't want to change these settings into one like basement group really. So that this is like all the tech nerds in the basement, essentially. Yeah, these stochastic weights. I mean, we discussed this. We kind of opted to keep these in here, and then yeah. So just when it's calculating the average of the 4 values, and so like the red stochastic one, it just multiplies it by that number, and then the stochastic 4, the green, multiplies it by that number. So in other words, it emphasizes that one. You can play around with those. Obviously, feel free. But honestly, I think it's a bit like with the Amstrad Hi-Fi with a graphic equalizer. You know, I remember from the olden days, like you could fiddle with a graphic equalizer and you can make the sound kind of worse, or just how it currently is. You know, that was the range. And it might be a bit slightly the same with these, but at the same time, it kind of helps to understand just how it's all working really to fiddle with these. So useful in that sense. And then the same for the ones that are already there in terms of these settings.
Yeah, I must admit, I touch absolutely nothing. I just use it out of the box. I don't touch anything. So I would suggest, unless you kind of understand the mechanics behind it, and yeah, otherwise just don't touch it, because I think it's just great as it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the settings, I totally just set the defaults to kind of how I was using it really. So hopefully that is the case for other people as well. Over on the style tab, I mean, these are picked up from the indicator script by TradingView, and they just kind of get chucked onto here. But we can, so these titles are set by us in the script. So yeah, if you wanted to change the styles a little bit, I guess the X's are configurable.
I didn't know you could do that. I know Brits Australian, I think his name is, in the Telegram group, he was saying that he changed it to a flag, which I thought makes a lot more sense. And I replied that I was reluctant to do that because we'd have to sort of like code it into the indicator and then my description on TradingView, which you can't change, by the way, which is really annoying. That would be wrong, but in fact you can do it here.
But yeah, I was thinking that these might make a bit of sense just because of what they represent. Like, you know, the trend is probably going to continue in this direction.
I know that these green crosses and the red crosses are probably the most confusing part about this indicator at the moment. So it's great to have a little discussion here with Maff about what they actually mean and what they're doing and how we can interpret them. So
sure, yeah. So I mean, this is probably a pretty good example actually. That all of the pro signals, the go signals are pointing to this shorting, but it's also got this guard in place where it's looking at ABCD patterns and so on. But in particular, it's kind of realizing that the price trend is probably going to continue upwards, and sure enough, it very much does. So in terms of that, we could potentially look at, I guess, the green X is going to be that one. So I don't know if that works or not really. It's kind of like saying it's going to go upward.
That is better, I think, because Yeah, you've probably heard like Maff describe it as a guard. I know in the script it sometimes refers to it as a shield. It's basically saying, well, exactly what Maff said. It said like, everything's pointing to the fact that it's going to go down, but hang on a minute because it's going up. And sure enough, that wasn't the pullback that the indicator, well, that everything else was saying at the time. So I think the idea of a little green arrow pointing, or little green triangle pointing upwards is pretty cool. Actually, I like that. Yeah. I'm just wondering if you had any ideas about, if you could see any improvements we could make to this in the future, anything you'd like to see on it, or, any other way it could be improved, really.
It's not exactly perfect, I'll give it that, but then no indicator is. I think it certainly misses some moves, but price moves, but that's usually because they're down to some different dynamic or other. I suppose that any price effect that isn't necessarily momentum based. Obviously things like, I suppose, Jerome Powell's speeches, or I suppose Trump's tweets and so on, are going to affect the price pretty randomly.
Yeah, that is true. But have a look at Tesla, TSLA, on the 1 hour, and then we look at the bit where Mr. Trump and Elon had their argument, and Elon threw his toys out the pram on the 6th of June. Now look down the bottom there, and what do you see? There's like a beautiful bit of airspace there at the bottom of the indicator. So even though that was down to like an argument, as that candle was coming down, you'd have been thinking, well, where's the bottom? Where's the bottom? If you'd have actually gone long at any point when you started to see that kind of airspace, you'd have got the bottom there, wouldn't you? I just wanted to say, even though it wasn't perfect and it can't predict, major events, it kind of does a little bit, and it certainly helps when they do happen. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And but yeah, sorry, you were saying how it isn't perfect.
Oh yeah, and you came up with the counter argument that actually it is perfect. No. So actually, if I switch it back to Bitcoin, well, actually, it should be this one. I'm good old Blofin for this one. Interestingly, actually, sorry, this is a bit of a segue, but just curious looking at how it reacts. I think, yeah, it's ByBit. Just wondering if the pattern particularly changed on that. Not really. I thought it was going to be dramatic.
Sometimes it varies if you compare like the perpetual contract charts with the spot charts. Sometimes that changes quite a bit just because the price is actually different.
Yeah, true, and probably on the lower time frames as well, I think, because it's catching the immediate thing rather than the more leveled out, so it's smoothed out. So in terms of other things, so yeah, I think in terms of potential improvements, it's like we could potentially add more things. So anything it isn't catching, in any price movements it isn't catching, in terms of if they're trend based rather than momentum based or something else based, could kind of add them in. I do think though that at that point it could be argued that maybe those just belong in a separate indicator, because of course this is what I think what actually drew me to this was the fact that I could understand it, even in the previous version, and I think that was because it's very focused, despite the sheer amount of stuff that's actually going on. So what I do really like is just using it, obviously with a CT Mac, but also with support and resistance levels as well. I just find that incredibly useful, just in terms of, well, okay, it's like even if it doesn't come down to this level straight away, it's very likely you kind of know that at some point it is going to come back down to that. In terms of price structures, this is one where, okay, that price structure got completed in terms of liquidity, and so obviously it is just because we kind of all know and hope that the number's going to go up, so eventually it's going to go past that line. but not necessarily because of this particular price structure, if you know what I mean. But in terms of this one, that was interesting because it went from a liquidity level when it was back here. I think I just kind of drew a line into nowhere from that particular pivot, and price came down to it. This is like sorry, again, I need to remember how to use TradingView. So it kind of completed that liquidity structure. The liquidity got mopped up, and then it came down again, another bounce. So kind of like it was turning into a resistance line. So that sort of, sorry, that's a bit of a digression, but that kind of thing, I find useful just to use that in conjunction with this. So it's a trend and potential tops and bottoms in terms of the liquidity and support and resistance and so on. Just so I do find those three combined particularly powerful.
Okay. Well, that's absolutely fantastic, Maff. Now, we have discussed that maybe what we'll do, in fact, I think we are going to do it on maybe Saturday. We're going to do a live stream together and look at the price of, well, whatever live, probably Bitcoin. But do you think that's a good idea still? I do.
I think that'd be great, actually, yeah. And also we won't be able to remove the outtakes. That's
true. That's true, actually. Yeah, and yeah. So I think that'll be something to put in your diaries, actually. You know, but I think we're going to aim for like midday Saturday. What is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
PST.
That
would be really good.
Yeah, that's UK time, so that'll be about 11. No, it will be 11 UTC. So that's the plan. And I think that's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. Obviously, with it being Saturday, the volume's going to be low. There won't be the effect of the markets opening and closing. So it will be different, but it might be quite a nice sort of chilled stream just to have a little discussion or whatever, and have a look at this and see how we can use it. And maybe we'll take some trades and make some money. That'd be good, wouldn't it? So have you got any final words to say, Maff? I just want to say thank you yet again. I'm just going to keep saying thank you as much as I can. But I
appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where I think I know you were asking me earlier about just how I got into just kind of this particular indicator and so on. I think it was a bit of sort of resistance to placing an actual trade. I was a bit sort of at that point a bit kind of like, oh man, if I just know this is going to go in the wrong direction, but I ought to place a trade. And then I thought, well, what if I kind of make some changes in this indicator? So switched over to the code, and hey, coding away on a TradingView indicator script, it's great. Hey, I'm basically trading here. I was very much avoiding placing the trade. I think that's the truth, really, of how I got started in it. But since then, it's been really enjoyable, and I'm finding now using it on trades that there are definite benefits there.
Okay, well, that's amazing. All right, well, I'll look forward to Saturday, and well, thank you yet again. I'll say thank you for the last time, but thank you so much, Maff, for coming along today and having a chat about this. And I really do appreciate all the work that you've done. I'm sure the community appreciate it as well. And if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you are subscribed and you've got the notifications set on all. Any questions, leave them in the comments down below and I'll try and answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll get Maff to answer them. Do give the video a big fat like, and above all, tell your friends.
I can't believe that Save with Crypto and Maff have chosen to make the quad rotation stochastic indicator in the United Kingdom rather than the United States, but they have clearly lost their minds because they are not even selling this great product. They are giving it away for free.
Okay, so We all know that Save with Crypto is the best YouTube channel on the planet, but it's not financial advice, right? So please do your own research and be responsible for your own actions. That way you will find that fairy tales will come true and we'll all become billionaires.